Well, hello and welcome to this very special conversation. I'm Ridhima Bhatnagar. The recently concluded G20 summit, of course, was a huge success as far as India is concerned and a huge success for India's presidency. While the top delegates and delegations had multiple hours of conversations and discussions, what was also at display was the food diplomacy that was presented by top chefs from across the country. And the reason that we're saying this is the kind of menu that was curated for the various dinners that were hosted, not just for the delegates, but for the first ladies as well. Our viewers would remember this is the International Year of Millets. So millets became a very big component as far as this menu is concerned. And the man behind the curation of this menu, in fact, was Chef Kunal Kapur, who's been kind enough to take out the time and now join us. Chef, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us here on CNN News 18. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. There's lots to discuss before we get talking about what is the kind of menu that we put out, what was the reaction that came in from the First Lady. I want to first begin by understanding, I'm sure this was a mammoth exercise, not just for you, but for your team as well. What is the kind of preparation that went in? For how long did you have these discussions, or what should finally find a place as far as the menu is concerned?
Yeah, so it just becomes easy. It's not very difficult, but yes, it takes up a lot of your planning and time. And I love to put this on record that the entire agencies and the government that was involved, or the people that were involved from the preparation side of the entire event, everything was planned in advance and everything worked as per the plan. And that means a lot. And, you know, one was not just proud to be cooking for First Ladies, but also proud of the fact that we could pull off such a high level event in our country with everybody working around the clock and so beautifully. So that is very commendable to everyone who is part of organizing this event.
So, Chef, now let's get straight into it in terms of what were the final dishes that found a mention on the menu. Give us the breakdown as far as the courses were concerned. I believe even the desserts had a millet component in it.
The idea was to showcase millets to the entire G20 delegate, whether it was the presidents or their wives or their ministers who had come along. The idea is that this is the International Year of Millets declared by the UN, and India has a big hand in pushing the same. In India, we have had a very long history of eating different kinds of millets. And in the big cities, normally, obviously, we have shifted to millets like rice and wheat, but there are other very healthier millets that are still consumed by a lot of people, and especially a lot of, if you go into the interiors of India, you'll be surprised there are a lot of tribes that eat, their staple is certain millets and not wheat and rice. So the idea was to showcase the amount of progress that we have made in terms of using millets in our daily food, how we can cook desi as well as international food and cuisine, whether it's a starter, soup, main course, or dessert, using millets. And you know, there is a certain impact on the farmer, which is a very positive impact on the farmer, on the soil, on the carbon footprint when you grow millets. Because millets do not require a lot of water. They can grow in dry, arid regions. It does not require heavy pesticides and chemicals. It is something that gels very well with Indian food. We, you know, हमारी 2 generation pehle, we were already very used to eating millets. So our cuisine is very adept to cooking millets with ease.
Correct.
The entire focus, and especially one of my star dishes on the menu, was mushroom ka khichda. Khichda, but they're very similar. And khichda is very similar to what a haris is, which haris is basically a meat pudding.
Correct.
It's a pudding like almost like a meat ki khichdi, jiska first mention is in the 10th century cookbook. That cookbook is called Kitab al-Tabik. And wahan par mention hai. And wahin se, you know, it came to India, and possibly our khichdi is derived from khichda. From the non-veg, we converted to vegetarian. So the idea was to serve them 100% veg khichda. And in order to make it different and not use meat, I used various varieties of mushrooms. And the mushrooms here are super interesting because I used ceps, chanterelles, I used shiitake. I used enoki. I had portobello with me. Now, all of these mushrooms, these are all names which are international, but
Yeah.
they're all grown here, right here,
Mm.
very close in Manesar. So there are these uh, lots of farmers who are now growing international variety of mushrooms
Okay.
right here. So let's say if I, being a chef, I'm from Delhi, in order to source all of these 10 years back, I had to import them. Now I
Mm.
have a supplier right here growing whatever that I want. Pink oysters, the
Yeah.
beautiful mushrooms, they're grown right here. And so you reduce your carbon footprint with what you're cooking.
Mm.
You're growing something which is very sustainable, which helps the farmer. It
Mm.
boosts the economy. You have something on the plate that is healthy to eat.
So if I to just ask you in terms of, this is just out of pure curiosity, this wide range of menu that was presented to the First Ladies, was there any particular dish that really stood out that possibly a lot of them came back and wanted to know the recipe of?
I think they pretty much were, when you travel to a country, you know that the food over there is going to be very different. I mean, forget food, there is water that'll taste absolutely different from one country to the other. So you are kind of prepared when you are, you're in a position where you have to travel so much. And, because it was a very high level delegation where important decisions were to be made, waहीं पर I think food adds a very positive, a very light touch of to ease things down. When
True.
you've been talking, you've been discussing, you've been loggerheads, you've been racking your brain, and all of a sudden there is that whiff of good food and sight and smell of great food. You kind of loosen up, and then you drop who you are as
Yeah.
a person, and you talk to the chef as
Mm.
what's in there, how do you do this, what spice is gone, oh, there's something similar, oh, this is something very different. So it's a conversation starter. And in my experience with all the First Ladies, I could relate to them as a person and not as First Lady, which is brilliant for a chef. And
Yeah.
that's what chefs are used to with our customers, that they drop down who they are, human to human talk. And these days most of us are foodies.
Chef, I just want to go back to something that you yourself pointed out a short while ago, which is the importance of millets, because this year is being recognized as the International Year of Millets. It's been recognized by the United Nations. The government has also taken various initiatives. Do you think India, because it's the largest producer of millets, over 40% production of the world comes from India, in a way we've been able to reclaim our culinary heritage with millets?
I think we have taken some positive steps. I still am waiting for the day when the customer enters, opens the door of the restaurant, sits and says, "Today I want to eat millets and I like to order something on the menu," and looks at the menu to see कि पहली चीज I want to order the millets. That's not the case right now. But because there's a whole lot of health angle that chefs and people have started exploring with millets, it's become an option where you wouldn't hide it below somewhere in the menu, that tick mark if we have something with millets, but you like to highlight it on the top of the menu. And slowly, gradually, I am seeing a lot of change. People are ready to try. The problem is that a lot of people still have a lot of misunderstanding, or I would say, do not have sufficient knowledge about what is a millet,
Okay.
how is it healthy for me, or I've heard that millets are healthy, but are they dry? Can you cook roti with it, or can you cook what all can you cook with it? Can you do a dessert? Can you do a soup? So I think we are still at a stage of cracking it. We have already made a bit of a crack, but we are still yet to make a big dent there, where people would say, like, let's do millets, let's switch to millets totally.
And that's, I think, important to focus on, Chef, that not too many people understand how to use millets in their day-to-day diet or the food that they eat. So would you want to talk to our viewers about in terms of ways in which they can incorporate millets in their day-to-day life, and also the nutritional benefits that it has going forward?
Okay, so we one of the common things that we make a mistake is that we say millet is like a grain. No, millet is a category. So any grain that is from the grass family is categorized as millet. So मक्की भी millet है, गेहूं भी millet है, rice is also millet. But then there are other millets like jowar, bajra, foxtail millet, kutki, barnyard millet, ragi. and many such more millets, which are actually very potent, very nutrient rich, and each one of them is um, each one of them is uh, uh, it has a certain nutrition. Not all of them will have all the nutrition, but some of the common things with millet is that they are high fiber. And most of the millets, not all, but most of the millets are gluten free. So where gluten to a lot of people is becoming a bit of a challenge, where for example, lactose was a problem. So you see a variety of products with almond milk to oats milk. It's already there, and gluten-free flour is kind of catching up, but it's not very tasty. That's where millets come in. There are a lot of millets which are gluten-free, which helps you. So you can pick and choose. यहाँ पर आपके पास choice when you say millets. Here are 10 different varieties of millets. Which one do you like? Pick one or mix couple of them, make a mixed millet like a atta, and have your bread or any other dish that you want.
Chef, this has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.